Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Okay, we've got a seriously fascinating topic lined up today, so let's just dive right in. We're looking at something that is so incredibly fundamental to our existence, yet when you really look at it, it is just mind-bogglingly complex. We're calling it Nature's Playbook. Today, we're going to blend some hardcore scientific facts with a really easy conversational breakdown to uncover how life actually continues on Earth. I mean, if you've ever stopped to wonder how organisms from the tiniest, simplest cells to, well, us complex human beings, manage to persist generation after generation, you are absolutely in the right place. We are going to unpack the biological magic that keeps our planet completely teeming with life. So let's start with a really simple but honestly profound question. How does life actually continue? Because let's be real for a second, every single organism on this planet faces mortality. It's the one universal guarantee, right? Every living being has a definite lifespan. It's born, it grows, it matures, and eventually, it dies. A massive mango tree grows old and dies, animals age, and, humans do too. But since death is a total certainty, nature had to invent an absolute master rule for survival. And that master rule? It's reproduction. It's literally the biological process by which living beings produce new individuals of their own kind. It's the ultimate insurance policy, making sure that even when one individual perishes, the species as a whole lives on. And you can see this mandatory biological directive across just a staggering variety of life forms. Think about it. From a simple single-celled yeast splitting apart to multiply, to a tiny hydra budding in a pond, all the way up to incredibly beautiful flowering plants and complex animals like fish or butterflies. Every single one of these organisms, no matter how wildly different their structures might be, shares this one non-negotiable rule. They absolutely must reproduce. Whether that looks like a tiny seed germinating in the soil or an animal laying eggs, nature has engineered some incredibly diverse, almost unbelievable pathways to achieve the exact same goal. Keep that tree of life growing. Okay, moving into our first major strategy, the hack, asexual reproduction. Now, if you think of nature as a giant software program, asexual reproduction is literally its ultimate copy-paste feature. It is this streamlined, super efficient way for organisms to multiply without all the complicated drama of having to find a mate. It's simple, it's incredibly fast, and it relies 100% on the genetic blueprint of just one single parent. The main process doing the heavy lifting here is called mitosis. Basically, this is a type of cell division where one parent cell divides and produces two daughter cells that have the exact same number of chromosomes. And the result? Offspring that are completely genetically identical to the parent. We're talking real-life clones here. For example, if you look at a simple animal like the hydra, it undergoes this rapid cell division at a very specific spot on its body. That creates a little outgrowth, called a bud. The bud just grows, pops off from the parent, and goes on to live its best independent life as an exact genetic copy. It's a ridiculously fast process, especially when the environment is friendly. So, what do we do with this biological knowledge? Well, humans are pretty clever, and horticulturists have totally hijacked this cloning hack for agriculture. Through a process called vegetative propagation, farmers can mass produce exactly the crops they want. And there are three main ways they pull this off. First up is cutting, which is literally just snipping off an overgrown branch at the end of the season. Second is grafting. This one is wild. You take a healthy piece of stem from one plant, fit it snugly into a slit cut into a completely different rooted plant, and wrap it up until they heal together as one. And third is layering. That's when you take a flexible, bendy twig from something like a lemon tree, pull it down, and just bury the middle part in the soil until it sprouts its very own roots. Let's just focus on the easiest one for a second, cutting. It's almost like magic. You can take a simple stem cutting from a rose bush, thorns, leaves, and all, and stick it directly into some compost-rich soil at an angle. Give it some water, leave it alone for a bit, and boom, it sprouts an entire root system. It will literally grow into a completely new, thriving rose bush. You don't need seeds, you don't need cross-pollination. It's just a perfect, exact genetic replica of the parent plant. This one little trick allows farmers to cultivate identical, massive yield plants on a huge commercial scale. But nature loves a good turn of events. Let's look at the plot twist, sexual reproduction. So, here is where we hit a massive, massive biological plot twist. If that copy-paste method of asexual reproduction is so fast, so incredibly efficient, and only needs one parent, why on earth did nature bother inventing something as ridiculously complicated as sexual reproduction? Why do most complex animals and flowering plants go through all the hassle of finding a mate, risking failure, and burning so much energy just to reproduce? Well, the answer is survival. Yes, asexual reproduction using mitosis is fantastic for a quick population boom when the environment is perfectly stable. But let's face it, environments change, new diseases pop up, global temperatures fluctuate, predators get smarter. If an entire population is made up of exact clones, one single nasty new disease could wipe them all out overnight because they all share the exact same genetic weaknesses. Sexual reproduction, on the other hand, is driven by a completely different biological process called meiosis. It takes two parents. It takes half the genetic code from one, half from the other, and creates a totally unique genetic remix. This mixing leads to variation, and variation, my friends, is the absolute ultimate key to adapting and surviving in an unpredictable world. And making this genetic remix actually work all comes down to one highly specific number, 23. You see, a normal human cell has 46 chromosomes. Now, think about the math. If a male and a female just smash their regular cells together to make a baby, the kid would have 92 chromosomes. Their kid would have 184. And very quickly, human biology would completely and utterly collapse. So nature solved this crazy math problem with meiosis. Meiosis is this specialized cell division that strictly, perfectly cuts the normal chromosome count exactly in half. It produces our reproductive cells, known as gametes, and ensures they carry exactly 23 chromosomes. That way, when two gametes finally fuse, the new offspring gets that perfect, magic total of 46 back. But, and this is the best part, with a completely randomized, unique mixture of traits from both parents. Let's see how this plays out in the wild. Next up, the plant romance, angiosperms. Okay, so animals can walk, they can fly, they can swim across oceans to find a mate. But plants, they are literally rooted in the mud. They cannot move. So how in the world do they manage to pull off this complex genetic remixing over huge distances? Nature's genius solution to this problem is the flower. A flower isn't just pretty, it is quite literally the reproductive organ of the plant. If you look closely at the inner workings of a flower, you'll actually find both the male and female parts housed right there together. The male parts, the stamens, produce pollen grains, which are basically the tiny carriers of the male gametes. Right in the center is the female part, which houses the ovule containing the female egg. For any of this reproduction to actually happen, that tiny speck of pollen has to somehow travel from the male anther all the way over to the female stigma so it can travel down to fertilize that ovule. But again, the plant can't just walk over to its neighbor to deliver the pollen. So what does nature do? It outsources the job. It has engineered some absolutely brilliant cross-pollination strategies by using the surrounding environment. Plants like wheat or maize, they just use the wind. They produce millions of super light, tiny pollen grains and just let them blow away in the breeze. Aquatic plants hitch a ride on water currents. But honestly, the most famous and coolest strategy involves animals. Insects like bees or birds like the sunbird. Plants literally evolved brightly colored petals, delicious sweet nectar, and intoxicating fragrances for one reason only, to attract these living pollinators. A bee lands to grab a drink of nectar, sticky pollen gets all over its fuzzy body, and when it flies off to the next flower, it delivers that pollen directly to the female stigma. It is a completely flawless biological partnership. Which brings us to our final chapter today, the human climax, gametes and fertilization. All right, let's shift gears from plants and talk about humans. Much like plants, human reproduction relies entirely on the fusion of specialized reproductive cells, but it happens on this incredibly specialized, deeply microscopic level. And when you compare the male and female gametes side by side, the asymmetry is just staggering. Take the male gamete, the sperm. It is incredibly tiny. The body produces them in the absolute millions, and they are actively motile, meaning they literally have a little tail to swim rapidly. Now compare that to the female gamete, the egg. It is vastly larger, it's packed with stored nutrients to support early life, and it is completely non-motile. It doesn't swim at all. Plus, while millions of sperm are being generated constantly, a female's ovaries typically release just one single mature egg every month during a process called ovulation. The biological contrast between the two is just wild. And that sets the stage for the absolute climax of this whole biological journey, fertilization. This is the ultimate biological race. Millions of those tiny, fast-swimming sperm have to travel a massive, perilous distance through the female reproductive tract. Honestly, the vast majority of them will not make it. But nature specifically designed the system this way as a gauntlet, ensuring that only the absolute healthiest, strongest, most capable sperm actually reaches the finish line. Because out of all those millions, only one successful fusion with that single waiting egg is required. When that one victorious sperm finally succeeds in fusing with the egg, it creates something incredibly special called a zygote. That's it. This single, tiny, newly formed cell is the absolute, literal beginning of a brand new pregnancy. Remember our magic number from earlier? The sperm brings exactly 23 chromosomes from the father. The egg brings exactly 23 chromosomes from the mother. The exact millisecond they fuse to form this zygote, they restore that necessary human chromosome count to a perfect 46. From here, the single cell will start dividing rapidly, it'll implant itself into the lining of the uterus, and over the course of 9 months, it will develop into a completely new, entirely unique human being. So, as we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with a bit of a thought experiment, a real biological brain teaser. If simple cloning, asexual reproduction, is so ridiculously fast, efficient, and honestly seems like the perfect cheat code for biological immortality, why did nature gamble everything on the complicated, risky, beautiful chaos of sexual variation? At the end of the day, it all comes down to evolution. That genetic remix, that constant, unending rolling of the genetic dice, is exactly what creates the diverse variations that allow life to adapt, survive, and actually thrive through millions of years on a planet that is constantly changing. Nature knows that it's not just about producing life right now. It's about producing life robust enough to survive the future. So keep exploring that beautiful chaos, keep questioning the world around you, and I will catch you in the next explainer.